get started. Thank you for coming. My name is Carl Wiggins. I'm the representative from District 3. I just wanted to maybe set some ground rules real quick, just to make sure we don't have too big a crowd, but just to make sure everybody gets a chance. I wanted to ask people if you have a question or comment to raise your hand. Try to give as much time as possible for everyone to speak. And we may have time at the end of the meeting for more folks to give more questions or comments, but try to limit yourself to one to start with. I'd also ask if you're not a resident or business owner of District 3 that you allow the folks from this district to go first, just as a courtesy, because this is really intended for District 3 people to talk and bring their questions and concerns. So I want to hear about problems, concerns, questions, and things you'd like to see in Northport generally, or District 3 specifically. I did have some questions that were emailed to me, so I'm going to go ahead and answer those questions. And I'm going to read what I have because I wrote it out. So after that, we'll have more of an open-ended discussion. I'm going to start with the silliest question first. What is the status of discussions to merge into a metro government? Do I favor such a merger? If so, why? So there have been no discussions about that. I think if you're aware of that, Senator Gerald Allen submitted a bill, I think at the end of the session, to propose merging Tuscaloosa County, Tuscaloosa City, and the city of Northport into one government, metro government. As far as I'm aware, he did not discuss that with any leaders of any of the three entities or with the the legislative delegation. So I think that was just to throw it out as a topic of discussion rather than a serious proposal. My personal feeling about that, if you care to know it, is that metro government would be a better solution for a single city that was relatively close in size to the county that it's in. That is not true of Tuscaloosa County. Tuscaloosa County is huge. The city is relatively small compared to the size of the county. And about as many people live in Tuscaloosa County as live in the city. So I think that anybody who's witnessed the way that Northport has sort of been given short shrift in the County Board of Education over the years as a small part of that entity would probably not like to see Northport governed by a board that ran the whole county and the city of Tuscaloosa as well. I think giving decision-making power to an entity covering that big a government is probably not going to be very sensitive to the needs of Northport. Second question I had is, you were appointed to your seat. Do you plan to run for election in the next cycle? I think that depends on a few things. I think I would have to feel like I'd made a positive difference for the district and the city as a whole. My wife Leslie is here. I would have to run it by her and talk to her about it after 2 more years of this. And I think that I would have to feel like the residents of District 3 supported me running again. So I'll look at that when it gets closer to time. We've got more than 2 years to think about it. So at this point, I would just say I'm going to focus on what we're doing today. Okay. Now the controversial stuff. What is your opinion of the council not accepting citizen input on selling the community center property? I have several thoughts about this. State law basically says the council meetings are for conducting city business. So while the council meetings are public, that doesn't necessarily mean that the public has the right to speak at them unless there are public hearings that are required by law. since the vote on June 5th was not about selling the property, but about exploring a potential sale, the public hearing was not required, so the council didn't have to do it. And if the council was voting to sell the property, there would have to be a public hearing. So it's kind of a moot point because I don't think any of the discussion would have changed the decision to explore selling the property, which was something we had already decided to do. I mean, basically we hadn't voted on it, but we had put the proposal out, so it was something that was going to be looked at. However, while I understand the reason that the sign-up deadline exists, I do agree that the fact that the deadline occurs on Wednesday before the council agenda comes out, and the fact that it's published on Thursday does contribute to the effect of people feeling like they were tricked or they were misled or they didn't have an opportunity to see it beforehand and sign up. So I've asked Ms. Webb and Mr. Davis to find a way to change that so that there is an opportunity of at least 48 hours before the agenda, before the deadline for the agenda to be published, so that people do have an opportunity to see it and sign up afterwards. And that's my understanding is that they're working on that. I think that, that doesn't prevent late agenda items from being added. Sometimes that happens. It doesn't prevent a council member from bringing up a motion that wasn't on the agenda, like we had last night. But it will give an opportunity in most cases for people to have something, to be able to see it and to talk about it, which I think is fair. I have some other things that I can say about the community center property. I may say that at the end because that's not really relevant to District 3 specifically. So I've got that. If you guys want to hear it, we can do that. But I think I also want to go ahead and start and let you guys have an opportunity to ask questions, voice concerns or vent or whatever it is you want to do. So should I let them take the microphone so that they can be heard on the recordings? I think I'll do that. So anybody have a question? Comment?
I'm not sure whether this is appropriate or not, but I'd like to say something.
Okay.
I'm Sandra Handful, and I've lived in Northport all my life. I have concerns about the selling of the Northport Community Center to the Beaker Property Group. I guess it goes back to the fact that of history of the community center probably, I had to talk about that, because I'm not sure about all of you in here, but my age group, that was where we spent all of our summers. We walked there was a public library in there, a smaller version of the Tuscaloosa Public Library. I checked out books in there when I was a small child. All the ball playing and some of the players in my class and younger played there on the fields of that community center now where the museum and all that. So there's a lot of history there. But be that as it may, I know we move forward, and I have a couple of comments I want to make about that I want you all to consider about what you put in place there or to whom you sell it. First of all, I got to thinking about the progress that you've made in terms of the different projects that you have ongoing, the adventure park, the water park, and also your sportsplex. And in the same token, the Boys and Girls Club coming to the Hassan Center. When you look at all four of those seem to me, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, are geared more to the younger populations, the children, the younger ones. I think you may have not thought about those that are the retirement age. So some of my friends and I have talked, especially those of us that go back so long in history to that community center, and we kind of thought maybe you might want to look at that as a senior center. In other words, now I know that they rent that out or whatever, how they do it with the dancing on the Friday nights. They teach dancing there, I think. They have the reunions there and so on. And those tend to be for the more retired people. And I think you need, you've got a lot of citizens in your district that are retired. And they're not going to benefit that much unless they go to the parks to watch their grandchildren or whatever, play or swim or do what. We're not going to zip line or do anything like that. I don't think. And I think you need to think about that, because you have a lot of senior citizens and also retired ones. That community center would be an ideal location for something that was geared to senior citizens, retired ones, but at the same time you can keep the playgrounds there for the children. It's within walking distance. It's, I think, a relatively safe area. It was very safe when I was growing up. I could walk to the community center every day, and I did. And I could go down there at night and watch. After every county high football game that was in town, they always had a dance in there. And a lot of people, when you look back, I can think of the ones that are older than I am that are still alive that danced in there. And they are the pillars of Northport. They own the businesses in downtown Northport. If I said their name, she would recognize them. And they did that. And I'm sure that they would welcome that community, a senior citizen center. And I think that's just a thought for you before you sell it to some commercial, something that may be beneficial for families, but you still need to think about your retired people also. And thank you for having this tonight.
So just to respond to that, I think that's a fair point. I think that one of the things I've said to a couple of people who have reached out to me is that there's no park or community center in District 3. We don't have a place here to do any of that.
Well, we have.
Not public. I mean, not a city park. I mean, we have several.
Not in Northport, we have some.
Right, yeah, but it's not in the city. So I think that one of the things that we need to do is, if we do sell that property and take that away, we need to replace it with something. Whether it's replacing it with another community center, whether it's replacing it with another park, whether it's replacing it with multiple parks. I think one of the things that the city did before I got onto the council is started working on a comprehensive plan, because a lot of the growth of the city is, District 4, District 5, District 3, North and West. And there's not really any, other than the new parks that have just been purchased, the Adventure Park and Water Park, which obviously we haven't broken ground on them yet, so they're parks in concept. There are no public parks in that area count at all. So I think adding green space, adding parks is part of our long-term plan. It needs to be part of our long-term plan. There is a meeting next Monday night, is that right, the 26th? A vision meeting at City Hall where we're going to be talking about public parks and public facilities, and those are excellent points. And I think you're absolutely right. We can't leave out seniors when we plan for that.
Thank you for this tonight. We really do appreciate it. My name is Patricia Goff. I live in Greenbrier Drive. And my question to you is, this Heritage Park, the land was donated by a family, correct?
Sure.
Do you think that family would have donated that land knowing that it would be sold later for profit?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but
What do you think?
well, I don't think that was what they thought at the time, but also I think that the city has two commercial corridors, basically McFarland Boulevard and Lumberley Wallace. That is where most of the commercial development happens in Northport, and those are areas that, when the city adds businesses, you don't want them necessarily next to you, right? You want them on the areas that are already commercially developed. And so having that park there, it's fine. I mean, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the park being where it is, but it is valuable property, and one of the things that the council was trying to explore is to bring in businesses and opportunities that citizens have been asking for. So if we decide to do that, it will be something that, you know, we are trying to respond to the requests of citizens. I recognize that not everybody loves that idea, and I recognize that there are some people who just don't want to change any of that. And I respect that, but you know, there are also other considerations for the city.
The city of Tuscaloosa has Monash Park, they have Snowden Park, they have Annette Shelby Park. Those parks are very valuable too, but they were donated, and the city of Tuscaloosa has never thought about selling Monash Park on 15th Street in Hackberry, and they definitely wouldn't sell Snowden.
Okay.
Just,
I mean, there are ways that a park land can be dedicated so that it cannot be sold, and that was not done in this case. So I don't know what the intentions were, but all those people aren't around anymore either. And we have to grow as a city. We have a city of 30,000+ people. We're likely to be 50,000 people in the next 20 years. And the city isn't the same city it was when I moved here. It just is going to change. Any other questions? No, don't be shy.
My name is Camille Shots, and I live in Monroe. And you mentioned that some people had made suggestions on what businesses they would like to have on that property. Could you give us an
Well,
idea of what?
I'm not saying that they specifically were asking about that property. One of the things when I first started kind of following what was happening in Northport politics, not that I didn't follow it before, but following it on social media is fairly easy. And I followed Councilman Hogg's feed because he does a lot of recruiting businesses. And every time he would have ask me a question or talk about some business, usually he'd say, hey, we recruited this business in town, and people would left this 50 other things that they wanted. And one of the things that comes up pretty consistently is more restaurant options, more, Starbucks. I mean, sometimes people will ask for things like Costco or Target or whatever, which Northport is not big enough to meet the Target system of businesses. But every business that you try to recruit into a city is going to have requirements that they ask for, when they come into town. And specifically, you're talking about a drive-through coffee place like Starbucks or Krispy Kreme or whoever else, Dunkin'. Northport is a city where nearly 80% of the residents work in Tuscaloosa. And so most of the residents in Northport leave when they head out in the morning. And so for a drive-through coffee place, they want to be on the side of the road that sees a lot of morning traffic. So a lot of people have said stuff like, well, can't Starbucks go here? Can't Starbucks go here? Well, technically, yes, but they're not going to locate there because they want to have a lot of morning traffic. And that route on Whirling Wallace into Tuscaloosa is one of the most traveled roads in Northport. It gets 45,000+ cars a day. So there's a reason that they want to be there. Doesn't mean we have to do it, but it doesn't also mean that Starbucks can go just wherever we think is a good idea, because that's not their business model. So, I mean, I ask, can they go in some of these empty spots in District 3? And the answer is no, because they don't want to do that. That doesn't fit their model because it doesn't catch the morning traffic. And there just happen to be more spots on the evening traffic side of the street that are open. So that's pretty much it. The other thing that we're looking at, we got several different proposals for this site. We got two that they didn't offer very much money, and we didn't think they were worth considering because it didn't offer what the appraised value of the land was, based on what we thought it was. There was another proposal that had 3 fast food restaurants in that same spot, and I was just like, that's not what that, to me personally, that was not what I was interested in doing. The proposal we have was for a sit-down restaurant, a design that they say will fit the character of downtown Northport, and a brick facade, similar looking to downtown buildings, and the Starbucks restaurant. Again, that doesn't mean we have to do it, but I thought the proposal that we got fit what we were trying to do. It had some green space into it. And it is, one of the things people have brought up is it has a lot of parking. Well, for me, one of the reasons I looked at that was I said, Starbucks, they're going to get a lot of traffic in the morning, and that traffic is going to back up. And so you want some room in the parking lot for it to absorb that. Anybody who ever gone to Chick-fil-A up here recognizes the parking lot's not big enough. So they constantly have trouble with traffic coming in right there at that intersection. So that was what I was considering when I looked at it.
My name is Zach Stone. I actually live in District 4, but I was interested in what people had to say, what they had to say in particular. But and I appreciate what you said earlier about requesting that the rules be changed about when the agenda is laid out to give the citizens opportunity who want to speak to the council so they'll know what's going to be on the agenda for the upcoming meeting. I think that's the right direction to go. Secondly, you mentioned change. The city is growing. It's not the city that many of the people in this room grew up in. I'm not from Northport. I grew up in Maryland. Lived here for 14 years. But I will say, as a 43-year-old man, I'm not a proponent of the direction the city is going as far as progress or change. Personally, I don't want to live in Tuscaloosa. I enjoy living in a small town, and I would dearly love to see Northport stay a small town. One of the favorite cities now that I visit regularly is Athens, Alabama. I don't know if you've ever visited there, but to use a word that I don't normally use, it's lovely. It's beautiful. I love it. They have held on to their heritage. They have not brought in water parks, for example. Not saying that water parks are a bad thing, but I think to include families that have small children, they don't want a water park, especially where it is being proposed to go. I'm just one person, and I don't speak for everybody, but I do not feel like, and I don't really know you that well. I don't know a lot of the council. That's my own fault. But I have made a vow myself to get more involved, so you'll start seeing me more often. I'm not here to be confrontational, but I do want my voice to be heard. I believe there's more people like me in this city than the council thinks. And last night, Mr. Washington brought up the community center in his district, and I fully support the city funding that community center. It shouldn't be a community center here in this district or one over here or one or the other. Why can't we have both? We're taking out loans for multi-million dollars that we're going to have to pay for, that every citizen in this room will not be able to enjoy. But I guarantee you, every citizen in this room will be able to enjoy a community center. That's just kind of how I feel. And one last thing, and don't take this the wrong way, but I believe our city councilmen really need to evaluate themselves in the way they speak to the citizens. I haven't seen you do this, but there are a couple, maybe three on the council who use their position in a manner that is disrespectful. It's shameful to me. I have a standard that I live by. You can find it in a book called the Holy Bible. That's my standard, and that's the standard I'm going to hold you to. My councilwoman, and definitely the rest of the council in our city. And I think if you can't live up to that, then I don't think you should be in leadership in any city, but specifically Northport. That's where I live. I think it's very degrading when our council president gets on social media and bullies people because we don't agree with it. And I understand he gets a lot of feedback himself. I'm sure you've received emails, and I know that he does. But we didn't choose for you guys to run. You got voted into this position of leadership, to be expected to be leaders. And that's the standard that I'm going to hold you guys to. And I would hope that you would want us to do that.
I don't think there was a question in there, but I'm not going to speak for any other council member and how they act. I will say this. Last 2 weeks, most of the council members have been pretty raked over the coals on social media, and it is hard, I'll say for myself personally, not to respond to a lot of that. And I wrote out a lot of messages that I deleted before I sent them, and I got pretty angry. And I will tell you that I read so many lies this week in a particular Facebook group. They're just absolutely wrong. So, I got accused of taking money, being on the tape, being a liar, being demonic, satanic, all kinds of other things. And all that's to say, look, you can feel strongly about issues. You can feel strongly about what you want the council to do. And I think that, I had somebody reach out to me and say on social media, that we're your employers, you should do what we tell you to. Well, no, you're not. I have a job. I work for Randall Riley. At my job, if my boss tells me to do something, I have to do it, or I may not have a job anymore. Similar situation in the city, except that I don't get paid enough to do this. This is not a money thing. This is not a money thing in the city. I'm doing this. I granted, like you said, I put my name in the hat. You didn't come get me. But I'm doing this because I feel like I have some experience and some knowledge and some commitment to do some things to help make Northport better. And sometimes that may mean I don't agree with all of you. And sometimes that may mean that I do things that you don't like. So I would ask you to treat me and the other council people with respect. I would ask them to treat you with respect too. But I'm just going to say there are a lot of people out there that are constantly attacking no matter what happens because they hate the people who are in the council positions. And I'm not talking about me because I've been there long enough for people to really hate me. They don't know me well enough yet. But I've seen it. I've seen the messages. I've seen the emails. Some of them are pretty nasty. And it is not having the effect that the people intend for it to have, because it's not making people consider their thoughts. It's not making people consider their opinions. It's making them bow up and go, nope, I'm not doing whatever they want. So if you want the council to listen to you, that's not the way to do it. It's just not. I mean, and if I came to you and started calling you names or telling you to do something you don't want to do, well, you wouldn't want to do it either. So, I mean, that's just being human.
I'll speak loud, you don't need that. But in the past, council president has. I don't want to get into anything topic going on right now in the city, and it's. But it really bothers me that we allow that.
Well, I don't want to get into that because that's not me, and it's not my district, and it's not your district, so it really is.
It's a town hall meeting, and this is our opportunity. Like last night, as a matter of fact, whatever his name is, Mr. Washington, he spoke for 17 minutes. We're only allowed 3 minutes to speak. What gives him the right to sit there and talk to us for 17 minutes?
He was elected to represent District 2. That's what gives him the right to do it.
Okay, so that's what, as you as District 3, you were appointed, not elected. How does your district tell you what they want and what they don't want? I'm not talking about the park, because I've dealt with other issues.
Sure.
Can y'all hear me? Okay. I'm Kay Holden, and I'm president of Northport Life. I do not live. You gonna give it to me? Are you okay? Because I feel like this is where I'm going to try to strive, because I've strived with all our city officials and our city employees. What we want to do is help you help us.
Sure.
When I was trying to take a stand with the city, I tried very hard to educate people about both sides. But then I felt like, as our councilman, it is not, you will have what you know, because you know more facts than we do. So you may know more what's better, or what you feel is better. But still, you're representing the whole. So what I chose to do was ask my residents, email your district councilman, tell them you're in this district, they can look it up. Email your mayor. So to help you, but in this situation, I'm torn, because this isn't another district, the park's in another district. But I would like to go out and ask all my residents in District 3 and all my residents in District 4, please contact your district councilman and tell them how you feel. Or your vote. Are you opposed? Are you for it?
Right.
We would expect that if your voters went against whatever your personal feeling was, or your assumption or recommendation you had derived, then you should step forward and educate, or you should again follow what the voters have asked, what the constituents have asked. So that's where I'm confused in this, because I'm hearing a lot of us and them, but we're all one team, and you're representing, correct?
Sure, I have an answer.
So can you tell us how? Can we
Yes.
email you?
Sure. So the thing I would say is I've had several people email me and had several conversations with people that were very thoughtful and, valuable. When somebody would say, hey, I'm emailing you to express my opposition, the first thing I do is respond back and say, can I ask you some questions about that? Like, why are you opposed to it? Is there anything that the council could do with this property that you would accept? What if we did this? I'm just asking the questions because I want to learn too. So emailing me is great. I handed out business cards to most of you. My email address is on there. I have a city phone also, and I can give that phone number out. You can try calling me, but I'm not going to answer while I'm at work. But you can send me a text message or leave me a voicemail. But email's a good way. I mean, for people who don't have email, I'll take some other way. But getting onto a Facebook group and griping about it does not reach the council members. So that's not a way to do it.
So a direct email.
A direct email to me is fine. Yes.
Well, and also
Isn't
And
that
if
how
you-
we contact our councilmen now in today's world?
Yes.
I
I mean, you can send the letter, but I would send an email. It's much more direct and going to get there a lot faster.
Somebody else.
I have a few more, but
I want to ask you, who owns the park?
Who owns the
The
park?
city of Northport.
The city of Northport. And who is the city of Northport?
The city government of Northport.
We own the city of Northport.
Well, but not in a sense that you can sell the land.
Now, we don't want to sell the land. We are the city.
But what I'm saying is, the city is going to make decisions about property and land that it owns with the representation that the city has elected.
We own it.
Okay.
We own it.
I have a few more.
We own the
Okay,
park.
do we
And
have-
it's not about the park.
Do we have
I'll
other
walk away from
questions?
the park.
I'd like to hear from people who live in District 3
Well-
about issues in District 3.
I'm leaving. I also want to say thank you for holding this town hall. I think this needs to happen more often in all districts. So I want to personally thank you for holding this. And that's why I came. I think this give the people a voice in the city. And I appreciate you doing this. I know things I said maybe you didn't agree with, but that's what this
Hey,
is
that's
for,
fine.
right? And I know I don't live in your district, but I live in Northwood Lake. So I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Well, and my question is for the representatives in here.
Sure.
For the residents
you're
of District 3, I'm not, this isn't. Okay. So let me start with, normally people contact me on an issue, and I have contacted from the city. And what I'm trying to do is shield some of the calls, because even though we're not that large anymore, we're 765 houses, but I can narrow down the calls, and I can't use my knowledge over the last 6 years to say that's probably your responsibility and not the city. So some of the concerns is, or are, when they're paving the roads. We're not getting from the pavers, we're not, or whoever, Esteban, or Coulter, whoever gets the bid, we're not getting the required amount of coverage. They're painting it thin, and it's needing to be repaid within a shorter amount of time. Who do we contact? Do we contact Tara Tubbs' department? Do we contact our district councilman? Who, when I get these complaints, because this is in your district, about the thinness, do you want this, or do you want me to ask you the other question?
I would say Tara's there so she can give you a good answer, but you can always copy me on it when you
Okay.
email somebody else.
I get confused on when do I go to my councilman, or
Just
Do you want to go to the
copy
city
me.
first?
Copy me. If you think you know who to mail it to, that's great. Go ahead and do that because it'll get you help faster. But if you want to copy me so I can follow up on it, that's
okay,
fine.
great.
But, and to add to that, I mean, we worked together long enough that you know there's certain things that I just handled, so, Councilman Rickens will get it to us, absolutely, but if you wanna go directly, usually it may
It's okay.
speed the process up. So,
Yeah, I mean, it
I mean, you don't know.
definitely will speed it up because the first
Yeah.
thing I'm going to do is say, who do I need to ask? So,
Okay.
So,
yeah. But you can certainly copy me and I'll usually, most of the people here will tell you if I get the question, I will follow up on it and find out, did that get addressed? What's the status of this?
but just to address the paving issue, 2 years ago, the council adopted a paving procedure, so we have the same, we have dedicated funding every year, and we have a timeline that we meet, we have a certain time of year that we pay, and, that's geared towards when the paving contractors are least busy, so we get more bang for our buck, we're able to pave more roads. We also have inspectors, we have 2 inspectors that work for engineering, and we also have engineering inspectors work for our consultant. So the issues of not getting the thickness that you're talking about, that will not happen, it has not happened in the last 2 years.
Okay.
The other thing I would add to that is, we just, all the council members just got an email or a message from Holly to say, hey, you know, as we go, they go through the city and do assessment of streets to try to figure out which ones we pave in. But they also asked us, like, do you know of streets in your area that, in your district that need to be paved? So if you any of you residents know of a street that is in bad shape, email me, that's fine. Email Tara, we'll try to get it on the list, or at least assess to find out. There are probably certain criteria it has to meet to, are we gonna do a patch job, are we gonna do a paving and all that stuff, but they're well qualified to do that. But I can certainly pass them out if you want. Any other questions?
Can I ask one that doesn't have to do with the
With the park?
community service?
Yeah, sure.
Pat Goff, Green River Place.
I remember.
I don't know, I'm old, so I have to repeat it. Our subdivision, Green River Place, I can't remember exactly the year. We've lived there about 18 years, so it's almost 19 years old. And we've had the internet people come through. Ceasefire, is that it? Okay. When they don't, I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
But I'm noticing that our roads are starting to crack, like crack. And I was wondering, I think that probably the digging, had something to do with it, but being almost 20 years old. So how long do we wait before we can expect to be paving in 20 years? I mean,
That's a terrible question.
I think everybody would like to know.
So, several years ago, I guess it's about 3 years ago, the city council did an assessment of all of the city streets. We have that in a database, and they all basically got a score, but we know based on traffic patterns and construction and so forth that they could change from year to year. So what we do is we have all of our streets listed, and we have them all ranked, and then every year we update that assessment. We reach out, we get emails from citizens and requests that say, hey, this road's really deteriorating, or will you look at this road, like Green Garden Place, I'll add that to the list. We go through and do an updated assessment every year along with those roads that we get from the council members. All of those roads are then ranked from the worst ones are at the top, and they all have a cost estimate. So whenever you get the cost estimate, and we have funding from the city council, if it says we're gonna have $750,000 this year, we go down that list and pay $750,000 worth of those worst roads. So if we stay on this system and we continue to fund it the way we do, then hopefully from a 15-year cycle, we'll be able to go through and repave all the streets if it's consistently funded.
So you have to wait till it's really bad before we get paid.
We're gonna pave the worst roads in the city first. So if there's other roads in the city that are worse than Green Garden Place, then that one will get paved first.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I promise you know this. When are they going to start paving Watermelon Road?
So Watermelon Road is not on our paving cycle, so that was funded through a different process, but they are gonna bid that project in July. So, and it's going through ALDOT, because ALDOT funding is helping us pay for that road. So ALDOT will take bids for a contractor in July. Once they get the contracts and everything signed, it usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks. So hopefully in early fall, you'll see them starting to make repairs on Watermelon Road.
Bank repairs or?
They will repave it, and there's some drainage and sidewalk issues. There's even some traffic signal modifications there too. So it's more than just a paving project.
And that actually is one of the reasons it took longer to get done, right? Because there were some other things that were added to it besides just.
Yes, so it was supposed to be done on the same timing as Charlie Shirley Road, and y'all know that one's done. When ALDOT went out and looked at that, they requested that we added crosswalks and handicap ramps at the intersection where, at Rice Valley Road and Watermelon Road. And in doing that, we're having to replace and move some drainage inlets and so forth because they were in the way. So we had to go back and out and get more survey, and we had to get more design, which is the reason why that project slowed down. But that was a requirement of ALDOT. They're paying for 80% of it, so we need them to be happy.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
We've got a few more.
Yeah, you just want to run down your list.
It's not bad. I really could have brought a list, which I could have said, but, another question is, I understand the efficiency for the city council meeting to no longer allow signing up on the agenda prior to the meeting. However,
my time on the council. But one of the reasons, as I understand it, for adding that was that a lot of things that people wanted to talk about at the council meetings could have been addressed with, somebody else, another department head or a conversation. It might have been, like an issue about my road that needs to be paved or whatever, where it didn't necessarily need to come to one council meeting. It could have been addressed quicker. So I think that was the intent. Obviously, there's a process involved in that, but I'll leave it to, Linda and her team to decide how to do that. But I think that's a fair point that needs to be a little bit easier.
Over time, it will age out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The internet savvy. Yeah.
Well, and I struggle. I don't know if you use report a problem on the city site. Sometimes you get, sometimes there was prior to the new website, you would normally hear back in 2 to 3 days. At least we've received your request. The last few requests, which have been a few months ago, I've sent, again, go to cyberspace, because when I first started 5 years ago, prior to, I realized these requests were going nowhere. I was typing up a report problem, hoping someone would contact me, and they were going nowhere.
Okay.
So just as an eye-opener, maybe every once in a while try report a problem yourself as your district councilman, if you're helping people, and see if it works.
Okay.
Because I want to use that tool when I can, when people are savvy enough to use the website. I feel like I can bring it on.
Okay.
Good.
Please.
Ms. Holden, I think that you probably can agree. Anytime anyone comes up to the window or if they need help, they are never turned away, ever. If someone calls, if they email, it's always that's what we do. So, they can contact their council representative, but that's what, we're there for. So, if someone that's not savvy with technology.
That's what I told them. Go see Jordan. She's really sweet.
Right.
She'll sit down and take the time.
But that's what we're there for.
Okay,
So
good.
if
I want to make sure I'm not.
then you send them to the city hall, and we have hard copies. If they don't have a printer, we have resources for that. So
No, I guess I'll let somebody else. But I just like I said, this is a longer. So.
We happen to live in Pebble Creek, which is right behind the Blue Plate Diner, that neighborhood right over there. One of the issues we have is creek erosion, and we have flooded before, and so I'm curious if you know anything about drainage that's in the area and what is happening to accommodate, the creek erosion. And then personally, because I live right behind Ace Hardware, I have several garbage trucks, big trucks that go into Ace Hardware that are there between 2 and 4 in the morning, and it's really loud. And I didn't know if there was a noise ordinance in the city of Northport.
Okay, there's 2 different people. So the first question I'm going to refer to Sarah because she has information on the water.
I think you said you lived behind Ace.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if it's gotten worse lately. So as you're aware, IDOT is adding lanes to Highway 82. So there is a culvert replacement and extension there. So we do know a lot of that area is in a floodway, so you can expect it to hold water. And we do know that it's been holding more water lately than it typically has in the last year and a half because of the improvements they're making to the culvert. So I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to. If not, I would like to talk to you after and see, if there's something different.
is an ordinance, but there are some issues when your residence is next to a commercial piece of property. And, we can look into that for you, but obviously sometimes, as you know, dumpsters get empty in the middle of the night, electric get made in the middle of the night, so.
Yes, I know.
You're painfully aware of that, I understand. So it may be difficult to enforce, but if you want to give me the information after the meeting, we'll look into it.
So I'm curious, we've contacted the city before about Airbnbs. There's actually no ordinances, there's no rules for Airbnbs in Northport at all. And our little small community that was built in the 90s for retired community has changed a lot. We have a lot of rentals now. We only have 51 houses, and we have over the standard that we can't even get insurance for our HOA because we're over the standard, which is like 20%, I believe. And we're at 30-something% now. And all we were told was to call the police and make a report. And if they ever get enough, then they might do something about it. So at what point is it enough complaints about Airbnbs that there's some kind of rules or something that they have to, like Tuscaloosa does, they have to go every year if they've had so many complaints and they don't get their license again. So at what point, I mean, I live next to a rental and I don't have a problem with that, but there has been DEA who busted into that house and did a drug bust before. So I don't want to live somewhere that ends up being just an apartment complex in single level. I would like to maintain our property values and not have comings and goings so much. Because all of our streets are dead ends. So if they come down that street, they're coming back out that street. That's a lot of traffic when there's people who don't normally live there that are coming here for football games or graduations. And I understand they have to have somewhere to stay, but we have no kind of rules against Airbnbs at all. And I just need to figure out what I need to do to be able to deal with that. Okay, so we do require Airbnbs to be licensed with the city. We do require them to pay their lodging taxes. We don't have any zone-specific regulations. We are currently, as Councilman Wiggins indicated earlier, we're going through the comprehensive plan process right now. That's supposed to wrap up in the next month and a half, and then after that, we are addressing our zoning ordinance. So that is one of the things that is on our list to evaluate and include in our zoning. It's hard having different angles over the weekend, you know,
Sure.
especially when you're closer.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I was not aware of that being an issue, but.
It's not always an issue, but if somebody's bringing our board up 3 o'clock in the morning for DoorDash, that's, you know, we didn't order it, you know, it just gets inconvenient. And there's a lot of parts too.
Sure. Well, one of the things that, I'm the chairman of the administrative committee, so there are things we could do too as a policy to, improve that or address that. So that may be something as we go through, as Julie mentioned, the comprehensive plan, maybe some things we need to add, maybe, obviously rezoning is definitely part of it, but we may need to add some additional requirements for Airbnbs. So that may be a policy we take a look at. Any other questions, comments? We're running up on, got time for 2 or 3 great questions. Sure.
It's just a curiosity.
Okay.
Do you know what the demographics are or the population in Northport as far as age groups go?
Yeah. So the question was, do you know what the age demographics in Northport are as far as different age groups? I think that was part of the research for the comprehensive plan. Yeah. I mean, I don't know it offhand, but that is some data. Yeah, that is some data that was gathered as part of the comprehensive plan.
And on the census.
Can you send me an email? Sure. I'll yeah, if you send me an email, I'll definitely send it to you. Any other questions? Complaints? Well, appreciate the fact that you guys all came out here and participated, sweated.
It's getting cool.
It is. It's catching up just in time for us to leave. But I do appreciate the time. You know, my intention is to do this again. Probably, I'm going to try to do one maybe once a quarter or something, just to kind of have an opportunity. Probably won't all be here. Maybe somewhat less formal in some cases, but just have an opportunity. Maybe go to some HOA meetings or things like that as well. So if you have them that you want me to come talk, yeah, just reach out to me.
You want to take 3 minutes, Scott?
We're good. I'll be ready to go get some dinner. I want to say a special thanks to Linda and all the city department heads and all the staff people who came out to help get this set up, and Scott and everybody just really appreciate the help. Appreciate helping me field the questions.
Would you introduce your wife, Liz?
Yes, my wife. My wife Leslie is over there. I made her come, but I appreciate her support. Well, that's all. Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.